The hype and intrigue around Cade Cunningham this offseason is continuing as I'm hearing that Cade has been balling out at these Rico Hines runs. We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Eddie Johnson with 1 second to go.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Cahill. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Cahill. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We're on our road to 10,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. Or you could also leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Later on, we'll talk about the Pistons in-season tournament schedule that came out. We'll talk about who's in their bracket, who's in their group, I should say, and the games that they will be playing. I believe it's at the end of November. I have the schedule I'm not looking at right now, but I believe it's at the end of November. We'll talk about that a little later. And then to wrap up the podcast, I got a few questions from you guys I'm going to answer, and we'll talk about. But the first thing I want to talk about here is Cade Cunningham and the hype, the intrigue, the how anxious everyone is to see him play in the NBA this year continues just to rise and rise and rise. And before we really dive into what I've heard over the last 24 hours, I do want to shout out this. Over the last week and a half or so, we've had some really cool episodes, some really, really cool guests. I haven't recorded since the last podcast we recorded. I actually recorded the same day as the national with Ben Golliver. I've recorded it with Josh Lloyd. So I haven't actually been in front of the camera in a while. I scheduled these episodes out. But over the last few weeks, we had James Edwards on the podcast from The Athletic. We had Ausar Thompson's trainer and OTE head trainer, former OTE head trainer Luke Cooper on the podcast to talk about Ausar Thompson. We had Ben Golliver, national NBA writer for the Washington Post, who was at the select team versus Team USA scrimmage that Cade Cunningham really balled out at and talked about what people are saying in person. Really cool episodes during that time. And I would not be myself if I didn't take this time to say that there were some quotes from Luke Cooper that he said to other places about some stories about Ausar Thompson watching film immediately after games and right before they even ate dinner, like 10 minutes after their game. Or about how Ausar Thompson couldn't find a gym to work out in, so instead of just not working out, he went and worked out at parks. That's how great his work ethic was. For you Locked On Pistons listeners, you guys knew that before everyone else, because I got that for you guys, I believe, a week and a half ago on Monday when Luke Cooper was on the podcast, and he let us know. So all you guys who listen to Locked On Pistons every single day, my everyday listeners, you guys got the scoop first. Appreciate y'all. But anyways, so over the last 24 hours, I've heard that apparently there's been some Rico Hines runs going on. If you guys remember Rico Hines runs this past year, or last offseason, I should say, when the Pistons' whole team showed up, you had Cade there, you had Jane Ivey there, you had Marvin Bagley there, you had Killian Hayes there, you had Isaiah Stewart there, you had, there were a few other Pistons there, who was Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox was there. And they were going against other NBA. Steph was there, Draymond was there, Pascal Siakam was there, the whole Raptors damn roster was there, it felt like. But it's where a lot of NBA players go to go play some really competitive live runs. Not just some walking up and down the court, some half-assed, excuse my language, but half-assed games. You're not out there, lollygagging around. It's legit comp. You're out there actually trying to get better. It's very serious runs. And Cade, I've heard over the last 24 hours, in these runs at Rico Hines this year, has again been putting people on notice, has been impressing everyone in attendance, has looked like one of the best players on the floor, if not the best player on the floor, and the hype around him and intrigue around him continues to rise. So, when I heard this, all I could think about was this. Pistons fans, when this film comes out, when I come on the podcast and even talk about it before the film comes out, which I believe film should be coming out soon. It should be coming out soon, I believe. Heck, it might even have come out before you guys got to listen to this. But either way, if it hasn't yet, just by listening to this segment, I was like Pistons fans are absolutely going to love this. They're going to go crazy with this. Because I can't remember, I mean, I said this to Ben Golliver on last week's episode. I can't remember, when was the last time a Piston player had this type of hype around them and talk around them in an offseason continually? When was the last time this happened? I can't remember it. Like even with Andre Drummond back when he made an All-NBA team. I don't remember them talking about, heck, Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin came to the Pistons. He was a bigger than basketball star. He was a very popular person in America. And he didn't have this kind of talk around him in an offseason. But Cade is really catching the eye of some guys. So I was like, first thing I thought, Pistons fans going to love this. They're finally getting some eyeballs on them. Cade's finally getting some respect. He's finally getting some hype around him. People are remembering who he is. Hey, I was the first overall pick, yada, 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 all that stuff. That's the first place my mind went. The second place my mind went is the Pistons might shock some people this year if Cade's actually going to be as good as people are saying this offseason. Now, I love Cade. I love his team. But there is a difference, obviously, between dominating the offseason and dominating in the NBA season. It's two different things. So I have to come on and say there is a chance, there's always a chance, that when the season comes around, maybe things don't match up or they don't go as well as you want it to go. But all the signs from the offseason signal something different. Cade has looked great. Everyone I've heard from, everyone I've spoken to, he's healthy. He hasn't had any of his offseason limited to him because of his surgery. He's back at full strength. He's working himself back into game shape. He's been working really hard on his jump shot. He's been locked in, as we saw from him turning down the Team USA invitation because he wants to be locked in on this season. He dominated at the scrimmages against Team USA. He's playing extremely well in these Rico Hines runs. Pistons might be better than people expect this year because of Cade Cunningham. And the third place I took my head went to, Cade's going to win Most Improved Player of the Year this year. And if the Pistons can be decent, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year. I don't think they'll be a play-in team this year. But if they can be decent around February, if they're not just getting blown out at the bottom of the league or anything, if they can just be like in the discussion for the play-in, they're like fighting for it. By February or whenever All-Star voting wraps up, Cade could be an All-Star this year. Look, you guys know, I'm so high on Cade Cunningham's future. I've also been one that said, let's temper expectations for him this upcoming year. He's coming off his surgery. This is really his second season. It's going to take him a while, yada, 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 all that stuff. I've been trying to temper the expectations a little bit for him this season because of all those things I just listed. But, man, it's hard for me to keep doing that when everything I keep hearing, everyone I keep talking to, anyone that talks to me about Cade that has any kind of insight on what's going on, or is that something that Cade's at and he's working out, anything, all I'm hearing, all I've heard all offseason, and I kid you guys not, it's not just this past week. It didn't just start with the select team and the whole thing with the scrimmages. I'm telling you, as soon as the Pistons season ended, after that, all the way till now, I've heard from multiple people, multiple different, I don't want to call them inside, people who are around the situation, whatever. I've heard since the end of the season that Cade has looked great. Cade's coming for revenge this year. Maybe not revenge. I mean, you could call it a revenge tour. But really just coming for taking people's hearts. Like, he's working hard this offseason, and he looks absolutely fantastic. So the fact that it's not just Pistons people talking about it, it's not just Pistons beat writers or people trying to hype up Pistons propaganda. You got national people talking about Cade. You got people who are playing against him at Rico Hines runs talking about how great he looks. You got people that are playing against him in the Team USA scrimmages talking about how great he looks. These are his contemporaries. These are people who watch him from outside Detroit. These are people who don't care about the Detroit Pistons, care about the city. Like, they don't have a reason to talk about the Pistons. They don't need to. They don't have to. But they're choosing to. They're choosing to have this talk about Cade. They're choosing to let people know, look, Cade looks really freaking good. They're choosing to do this because Cade's forcing them to do it. So again, like I said, off-season's different than the in-season stuff. Obviously, you have to see it happen in the season. But, man, everything that I'm hearing throughout this offseason, you guys are going to love the Rico Hines film. When it drops, again, like I said, it may have dropped before I even post this. But when it does drop, you guys are going to love it. Everything I've heard, Cade looks fantastic. And this could be a really, really great season for Cade. And I think he's going to win Most Improved Player of the Year. And if the hype from this offseason is legit, if this is real, if the Pistons can just be decent, If they could just be fighting around February, whenever All-Star voting ends, Cade could be an All-Star this year. And we could be seeing the rise of Cade Cunningham. Came a little late. Had surgery. Had to deal with some stuff. But better late than never, I guess. This could be the year we really see Cade take the world by storm. I'm super excited. I'm uber excited for this season. I can't wait to see the film myself. So, of the Rico Hines run, that is. But let me know what you guys think. I tweeted this out yesterday live. You guys probably already saw me say that I've been hearing that Cade's playing really well. What was your guys' reaction to that tweet? Or if you guys haven't seen that tweet and this is the first time you're hearing about it, what's your reaction to this? If you've seen the Rico Hines film and it's come out before I post this episode, what's your reaction to that? How are you guys feeling about Cade this upcoming season? Are you guys hyped for it? Let me know all that in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. When we come back, the in-season tourney for the Detroit Pistons, the schedule has been released. We'll talk about the in-season tournament, who they're playing against, the intrigue of it. Should we be interested in it? How cool could it be? All that stuff. We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and so is my fantasy football league. I can't wait. The fantasy football draft coming up soon, man. And FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every single victory. You can use the bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And if you go to FanDuel, for Lions fans out there listening to the podcast, you'll see that FanDuel has the Lions as slight favorites to make the playoffs. They have them as slight favorites to win 10-plus games this year. When's the last time you've seen not the Pistons, but the Lions be any kind of favorite to do anything successful? When have you seen that? This could be the year, man. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon for all things Lions involving the spreads, player props. Heck, you want to look at Jahmyr Gibbs, over-unders on that, and more. Anything Lions, FanDuel got you. Make sure you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. You'll also start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon, and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button, or you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Before we get into this segment, let me know in the comment section, who do you guys want to see on the podcast? And don't troll me and go down there and be like LeBron James. Like, obviously I can't have. I'm not getting someone like that on the podcast. But we've had some really dope guests on the podcast recently. I have some decent connections. We've had, like I said, Luke Cooper, head trainer and trainer for Asar Thompson, Ben Golliver on. Obviously, we had James on. Who's someone that you guys want to see me chop it up with? I know you guys have been really enjoying the guest podcast and seeing us just relax and chill out and talk basketball. Again, weeks and weeks ago, I think it's probably been over a month now, we had Cannon, Cade's brother, on. That was super dope. So who else would you guys like to see on the podcast? Let me know in the comment section down below. And again, don't troll me with a name like LeBron. It's not going to happen, all right? But anyways, maybe one day. Give us some time. We're still on our way up. Maybe one day we can have King James on the podcast. Who knows? We're on the up and up. But anyways, in-season tournament. Also, let me know what you guys feel about the in-season tournament. We got the groups for the in-season tournament weeks ago. And so in each conference, there's 3 groups. And I'm sure all of you guys remember it. Cade was up there on the stage with, I believe, Anthony Edwards was with them. And they revealed who's in what group, whatever. And in the Pistons group, their group is called East A. In the Pistons group, they have to go against the Philadelphia 76ers, Cleveland Cavaliers, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Indiana Pacers. I don't think their group is that crazy tough. Like, a group that I think is going to be pretty tough is maybe East B with Milwaukee, New York, and Miami all in there. I think the only legit contenders potentially in the East A, and that's James Harden wanting out. So maybe there's not even more than one, but I'd say like Philly and Cleveland, and calling Cleveland contenders is a little bit of a stretch, in my opinion. So East A, I think, probably could be the easiest one. Maybe East C. Actually, yeah, East C probably is the. Basically, my point is that the Pistons group isn't that crazy tough. It's not going to be like we're going against Milwaukee and then Philadelphia and then Boston, and honestly, I was just happy as hell to see them not in the group with Milwaukee, because Milwaukee destroys Detroit every time. Like, Milwaukee just plays around with Detroit almost every time they play against them. It's like not even close. It's embarrassing at some point. But that's their group. And now we have the schedule for the in-season tournament. So their first game, first of all, the games will start in November. That's the quote-unquote group play will start in November for the seeding, I guess. I don't really understand exactly how it goes. But the games will be played on what they call tournament nights from November 3rd to November 28th. 2 games will be at home. 2 games will be on the road. And the Pistons' first game starts on November 10th against the Philadelphia 76ers. Then they play Atlanta on November 14th. Then they play Cleveland on November 17th. And Indiana on November 24th, wrapping up their group play schedule. So if I'm understanding this right now, I don't have the best understanding of this, but if I understand this correctly, the knockout, I'm reading it right here, so I could just read it from you guys from the Detroit Free Press. I believe Amari Sankofa wrote this right here. But there's going to be knockout rounds, which take place in December, feature the best teams from each group, and then what they call 2 wild card teams, and then they'll play knockout games, and then they'll have the tourney take place in December, and then the championship will be played a day before my birthday, actually, December 9th. It would be pretty cool if the Pistons made it to the championship, won the championship the day before my birthday. That would be pretty dope. But basically, it's going to be lasting from November 11th until the beginning of December, and depending on how far the Pistons go and how well they play in their group, it may end earlier. But that's the range of time that you'll see these games played, and that's who the Pistons will be playing against. Again, the schedule starts. If you want to buy tickets for these games and be there for, I do wonder, will Little Caesars Arena, will fans treat this like a playoff game? Like, will they sell out these games knowing that they're actually, like, each game's for something, but, like, the Pistons are, like, playing for a tourney? Like, would they show up and like, really sell out the stadium? It would be super dope. But if you want to buy tickets for these games, which ones? I don't. Either way, Philadelphia on November 10th, Atlanta November 14th, Cleveland the 17th, and Indiana on the 24th. Now, 2 of those are on the road. I don't know which ones are at home. But if you want to be there for one of the in-season tourney games, those are the dates right there. Find out which one is the home games. Buy your tickets now. Show up. Root for the Pistons. It'd be super dope if Little Caesars Arena was pretty packed for these games. It'd be pretty cool. What's my overall thoughts on the in-season tourney, though? I mean, the play-in tourney I thought was stupid at first, and then now I think it's a pretty good idea. And I think it's been pretty fun. I think it's actually done good things. So I'm cool with the play-in. I think the play-in, I think it's kept more teams involved and more teams interested. Like, we just had a team, Miami, go through both rounds of the play-in and make it to the finals. That's the first time it happened. Now, the play-in has only been around for a few years, so obviously it's the first time it's happened. But basically, I think it was cool that you got to see Miami do it, because you got almost, it's not instant, but damn near almost instant proof that a team can go from the play-in and actually have success in the playoffs. It's not just an extra, stupid round of basketball. Who matters? Who cares? These teams aren't going to make it anyways. No, we have an example of a team actually going from the play-in, taking that chance to actually do something in the playoffs. So I do think the play-in was a good idea. Basically what I'm trying to get to. I didn't like it at first. I do think it's been a good idea. With the in-season tournament, I'm in the same boat. It's not that I hate it. I like basketball, so if you can just, I'm going to watch the games. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. Pistons win the tourney, all that stuff. But, I just don't, why does it matter? Who are the players going to take it serious? What's the point of it? What's the reward for it? I saw some people saying whoever wins the in-season tourney gets an automatic playoff spot. Now, on its face, that sounds like a pretty good reward. But then if you look at, what happens if, that team wins the championship in that tourney, and now they just don't even play the rest of the year. They just, they throw, basically, the rest of the year. They don't take it as serious the rest of the year because they know they got a playoff spot locked up. Now you're ruining the product for the rest of the year. Now, I don't think teams will just outright throw every game, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. They don't take it as serious when they have something locked up. So I don't know if that's the best idea either. I don't think money is I know we've had some players pay me to play. I really don't think paying money, these guys make hella money already. Extra $500K, extra mil. It's not, I don't think that's convincing them to go out there and play harder and actually take it serious. I really don't. I think that's just a bunch of BS. So just my thing is, how can the NBA make it something that is important, actually matters? And how can the NBA make it to where the players will feel the same way the fans do, that it matters and take it serious and want to win it and really take pride in winning the in-season tourney? So that's my concerns with it. Also, another concern I have, I don't want anything to come close to matching the seriousness and the importance of winning the NBA championship. Like, I don't want people to be like, oh, I won some in-season tournaments. That's pretty great. No, everything is about that NBA championship. I don't want anything to come up as like a second place prize. Like, oh, well, this was good enough. Here you won this. You didn't get the big prize, but here you go. Let's hand out second place trophies. Like, no, I don't like that at all. So I hope that's the part that makes it tough, is that you kind of like balancing both. You want to make the in-season tournament important and actually matter, but you don't also want to make it too important to where it's taking away the importance of the NBA championship. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to enjoy the basketball. I'm going to want the Pistons to win the tourney. It's going to be super dope talking about it. Like, all that stuff. I'm going to have fun with it. I just worry will the players have fun with it. Will they take it serious? And why? What will the NBA do to make it matter to fans and the players, really? More than just any other regular season game. Besides saying, oh, yeah, you won an in-season tourney. But that's my thoughts on it. What do you guys feel about the in-season tourney? Are you guys excited to see the Pistons? Do you guys think the Pistons could be the best in their group and maybe move forward in the tourney? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KukaHill. When we come back, I'm going to answer a few questions that you guys sent in to me over the last 24 to 48 hours. So stay tuned to that. But first, you guys got to hear from some of our lovely sponsors. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. We got a few questions. We didn't get very many questions. I asked for a mailbag, but it was pretty late. And it was very, short notice. I didn't warn anything. So we didn't get very many questions. That's why it's a third segment. But I will answer the questions for those of you who did send in some. This one is from YouTube, from Matt Pap at Map. I'm struggling to read this username. At Matt Pap 6089. My goodness, I don't know why that was so hard for me. Anyways, it's been a minute. Would it be a good sign if the Pistons win the in-season tournament and didn't get to the playoffs? For a team like the Pistons, yeah, I do think it would be pretty cool. If the Pistons were able to be competitive in an in-season tournament, be competitive in a group that features some good teams, some teams that people probably figure to be better than the Pistons, and then the Pistons can go through the tourney, play well, win some games, and win an in-season tourney, yeah, I think that would be really good. That would be some stuff. Obviously, you'd like to get to the playoffs, but if the Pistons were competitive enough this season where they were able to win an in-season tourney and just weren't able to get to the playoffs, I think you could say that they had made progress. Because I don't think they're running the in-season tournament while losing 60 games. Like, I don't think that's happening. So if they were to win the in-season tourney, it'd be because they're actually a decent team. And they were hitting their stride at that point. Maybe some other things happened that caused them not to make the playoffs. Either way, winning the in-season tournament, that would clearly be a good sign and clearly a step in the right direction that they're moving up. So yeah, I think it'd be a really good sign if they were able to do that. Next question is from L Blouses 128 from YouTube. Curious about the lineups and situations that you could see Monty playing with Cade. How good could they be leading the team in stints? When I first read this, I thought you were talking about Monty Williams. I was a little confused, but you're talking about Monty Morris. I think they could fit. Monty's a good shooter. Play him off ball next to Cade. Although they can play lineups together, but I don't think it'd be like their best lineups. They definitely can fit together, though. Monty can play off ball, Cade will play on ball. You can kind of put shooters around them and play like pick and roll, space the floor, let Cade attack, let Cade do his thing. Maybe you could run a lineup even of Cade, Monty, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Livers, and Jalen Duren. Like, I think that maybe could work too. Like that, the idea of that type of lineup is the same thing across different players. Like, you can plug and play the players, but basically it's the same kind of idea of having, Cade with the ball in his hand, spacing a lob threat, and then having some kind of wing defense on the other side of the floor. But, yeah, I definitely think you could see many lineups where Monty's playing with Cade. I think you could see many minutes where Cade's playing with Monty. Because Cade's such a big guard and can kind of guard the other team's 2 on defense, and Monty can guard the 1, while Cade plays on ball and Monty spaces the floor. I definitely think you could see that at some point this year. Don't think it'll be their best lineup, but, yeah, you definitely will see it. This next one is from at LWCLJ23 on YouTube. What is the most important skill for each of the core 5, Cade, Ivy, Asar, Stu, Duren, that you would like to see the staff focus on developing this year? Given the lack of defense from our shooters, what do you think of the 10-man rotation should look like to start the season, and what do you think it should be by the end of the season, assuming the young guys develop by that time? Okay, to answer your first question about what should they develop or what should be the focus for each one of those players, I think Cade obviously is outside shooting, his pull-up three-point shooting. That's what's really going to take him to superstardom. He has to get back to where he was in college. If he can do that, good luck NBA trying to guard him. Jane Ivey, defense has to get better. There's areas offensively that he has to improve on too, but defense is the concern for me where I think he could be played off of a floor in the playoffs. And with his size and some of the defensive mistakes and concerns I have for him, that's the biggest area of concern for me. So he has to become better on defense. So that'd be mine for Ivy. With Asar is very raw, and he has a bunch of things he has to improve on. So I'm going to say, I know a lot of people are going to say three-point shooting. I'm not going to say, I'm going to say his footwork on drives to the rim. You saw it a little bit in Summer League. He takes off far away from the rim, which makes his finishes tougher than they need to be. This was something I talked about when I was scouting him before the draft in an episode. He takes off really far from the rim because he messes up his footwork a lot on drives. Like, he'll beat a guy off the dribble, but he'll pick up his dribble too early. Now his footwork's messed up to a point where he's jumping from the dotted line instead of taking one extra dribble and just dunking it on somebody. So if he can improve his footwork around the rim or on drives to the rim, and maybe his ball handling too is probably what plays into that. If he can improve that to where he's taking that one extra dribble and really getting close to the rim and allowing his athleticism to just dunk on people and get easier finishes, his efficiency will go through the roof. He'll draw fouls a lot more, and he'll be a much better finisher than he was this past season at OTE. So I think that's something he can improve too. So that would be my biggest one for him. Stu, outside shooting. Stu, you guys know my opinion on Stu. Everything with Stu, I feel like, rides on him being able to shoot threes. If he can't shoot threes, we're having a vastly different discussion about Stu. So his is just outside shooting. And then Jalen Duren, just overall defensive versatility. There's things he can work on offensively. You can want him to add a jumper, a three-point shot, a post game, all that stuff. But if Duren can be a really good lob threat who can pass the ball really well, you can run some offense through him at the high post, at the wing, run some DHOs with him because of how good of a passer he is. He can roll to the rim. He's a great finisher. He dunks everything he gets. Really great efficiency around the rim while also being a great defender on the other end. That's already one of the best bigs in the NBA. Instantly. One of the more valuable bigs in the NBA. Instantly, just like that. And he wouldn't need to add any post game, no jumper, nothing like that. By just being able to do those things, he'd be elite just by that. So his defense, overall defensive versatility, if he can develop on that end and really reach his ceiling on that. Now, I don't think that's going to happen this year. He's 19. It's going to be a long time before I think you see him reach that. But that's the area I feel like everyone should be focusing the most with him on that end. And then your second question, given the lack of defense from our shooters, what do you think the 10-man rotation is going to be? Yeah, I don't think they're going to care about the defense from their shooters. The rotation, it's going to be tough because, yes, they added shooting, but as I've said many times in the podcast before, I just don't see – not that I don't see, it's tough for me to build a rotation that includes shooting on the floor with Cade that also provides defense with it as well, and to where they're not just vastly getting destroyed on that end of the floor. So I'm going to go like just a quick 10-man rotation. Things can change. But this has basically been the 10-man rotation I've assumed for a while now. It's Cade, Ivy, Bojan, Stu, Duren, and then Monty, Burks, Asar, Livers, Wiseman. That's the 10-man rotation I got. There's some competition that will be happening, obviously, at the guard spots with the Sasser. And if Killian Hayes is still on the team, obviously he'll be fighting for some minutes. At the big man rotation, you got Bagley and Wiseman fighting for spots or for some minutes, and then you got Livers, Harris fighting for some minutes as well. So there's going to be some battling going on, but if I had to predict it, that would be my 10-man rotation. I think the Pistons will probably end up with entering the season. And unless some trades happen that free up minutes for Marcus Sasser throughout the year, I think that's probably going to be the rotation you see throughout the year. So, but that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Until next time, peace out.